guys, King of Charmanders here, and today I bring to you another Gunlance guide. More tips and tricks, the best Gunlance. This video is additional information to supplement my first Gunlance guide. We will review additional combos, details about Gunlance damage, and the best Gunlance in the game so far. We will also review and compare the wide charge shot Gunlance style and whether or not it's worth looking into. First, let's start off with shelling and Wyrmstake Shot details. I covered this subject in my Gunlance main builds. Number 1, shelling does not apply elemental damage or critical damage. Number 2, Wyrmstake Shot does not apply elemental damage and critical damage. Here's an example. If you are fighting a fire weak monster, your shells will not deal elemental damage or critical damage, even if you are using a fire Gunlance with positive critical chance / affinity. However, Wyrmstake Shot will apply elemental and critical damage. So let me dumb it down, okay? Shelling does not apply elemental or crit. Wyrmstake Shot does apply elemental and critical damage. That's why in the game, it pushes the Wyrmstake Shot so much, because that's how it was intended. Because the Wyrmstake Shot and Burst Fire are the two things that do the most damage, regardless of however people try to spin it, whatever. Because that factually does the most damage. Again, shelling does not apply elemental damage or crit, and Wyrmstake Shot does. Next up, we have shelling and Wyrmstake Shot upgrade damage. Number 3, Gunlance shell damage scales with ammo type and weapon grade. Here's an example. If you have a grade 4.1 Gunlance, your shell attacks will do the same damage as a grade 4.2 Gunlance. But if you upgrade to grade 5, it will do more damage. And here's the summary example for the shell damage. 4.1 equals 4.1 damage. Grade 4.2 equals 4.1 damage, meaning it's the same. However, if you overgrade to grade 5.1, it will do grade 5.1 damage. And if you upgrade it, of course, to grade 5.2, it will go to grade 5.1 still, because again, it's by overgrade. And as you see in the picture above, we have grade 4.1 versus 4.2. As you see at 4.1 and 4.2, it's still 126 shell damage. However, if you overgrade to 5.1, you see it does 181 instead of 126. So again, you have to overgrade to do more shell damage. And that moves us on to number 4. Wyrmstake Shot damage increases with every upgrade. So if you have a 4.1 Gunlance, Wyrmstake Shot will do more damage at 4.2. So that means you want to max out your Gunlance to 10.5 for maximum damage if you're using that Wyrmstake Shot. Here's a summary example for the Wyrmstake Shot damage. At grade 4.1, as you see, you will do grade 4.1 damage. However, if you upgrade to 4.2, you will do grade 4.2 damage. So this applies to, again, Wyrmstake Shot. And we have the two examples here to show it and prove that it actually is factual. As you see from the middle, we have grade 4.1 Anjanath Gunlance with Wyrmstake Shot doing 84 for the initial shot damage. At 4.2, you see it's Anjanath Gunlance at Wyrmstake Shot doing 98 initial shot damage. So it's doing 14 more than the previous one. So as we see again, 4.1 equals 4.1 damage, 4.2 equals 4.2 damage. Every upgrade you put on your Gunlance for Wyrmstake Shot will do increased damage versus shelling, which does not. Now that we covered all of that, here's Gunlance elemental status buildup. So non-shelling Gunlance attacks and Wyrmstake Shot can apply elemental status buildup. Status buildup also applies using status sneak attacks. Here we have a status sneak attack example. As you see in the example provided, the ability for the Wyrmstake Shot to build status elements is insane. As you see right here, it's literally an insane amount. And as you see, we already procced one poison right there. And I could proc it. I'm literally going to proc it again in the same battle using status sneak attack. You also have the option of using a raw build. As you see right here, I'm using the Burst 5 Rex 2 build. And even without status sneak attack being able to attack everywhere, I'm still able to poison Jagras once. This means you can use status sneak attack to proc elemental build-up faster, or you can opt for more damage, which is why I'm using the Burst 5 Weakness Exploit 2 build, as you see right here. Still does a lot of damage. I'm still critting because of Wex 2, and as you see right there, we have poisoned this great Jagras. And next up, we have something new. These are the most powerful Gunlance combos, which I call Wyrmstake Burst Fire, because Gunlance has a powerful combo that uses both Burst Fire and Wyrmstake Shot. And there are 3 ways to perform this combo. The first one is combo number 1, which I call Guard Stance, because you have to get in guard. First, you're going to tap and hold. You will then swipe up for a Rising Slash, swipe up again for an Overhead Smash. You're going to tap to fire Burst Fire, and then you will swipe up again to do a wide sweep. and then you will tap again to do a Wyrmstake Shot, as you see right here. And then bam, all the damage will proc off, and then boom, 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 boom. Great Dragus is now dead. Moving on, we have the second combo, and I call it the chain reload because what's going to happen is you're going to tap and you're going to reload your ammo before you use this combo. Like you see right here, you're going to tap and fire, quick reload, swipe up, and then you're going to burst fire, swipe up again, and then you are going to tap to initiate the Wyrmstake Shot. Step 1, you tap and fire. Step 2, tap, hold, swipe down quickly to quick reload. Step 3, swipe up for the overhead smash. Step 4, tap for burst fire. Step 5, you swipe up again for a wide sweep right after you burst fire. And then finally, at step 6, you will tap to initiate the Wyrmstake Shot. And then look at all that beautiful damage and that poison proc buildup against Great Jagras. And the third and final combo is the perfect dodge. You will perfect dodge, and the thing is, after perfect dodge, it's actually the fastest way for you to execute this combo, because after you perfect dodge, you can swipe up for the overhead smash, fire the burst fire, swipe up again for the wide sweep, and then the Wyrmstake Shot, which only takes 4 steps. First, you have to perfect dodge, and after that, the combo starts. Step 1, swipe up for the overhead smash. Step 2, tap for burst fire. Then step 3, you're going to swipe up to do a wide sweep, and then for the last step, you're going to tap for the Wyrmstake Shot. And as you see right here, it will fire off and we'll take out this poor Jagras. And now finally, we have a really long analysis on the charge shelling style. By using the long ammo type, you could tap and hold and charge shot monsters to death. Focus applies to charge shots, so you could use Focus 5. And here's why charge shelling style isn't great and not recommended. Charge shells do not crit, and you lose out on more consistent damage additions like burst because you give those skills up for focus. And you have to apply artillery to them as well, so guess what? A lot of damage adders that you have to give them up. And you will factually never do as much damage as getting good at Wyrmstake Shot and Burst Fire. A lot of people are saying the reason they don't like it is because it's too hard. You know, timing and making sure you cancel or use it at the right moments. Well, I hate to say skill issue, but it really is a skill issue. Because if you are trying to get better, which you should be, you'll maximize damage with Wyvern Shot and Burst Fire. The strafing from charge shots, like you see here, I just got hit. The strafing from charge shots isn't as large as a charge sidestep from the bow, so you can still get hit, and it's not that great when it comes to dodging. The range isn't as long as long range weapons as well, so even though you're using a long range type, you can't exactly hit the wings or anything like that, nor are you as safe as you would be using the bow or light bowgun. For that reason, if you're resorting this style of gameplay, you might as well just switch to use the bow and the light bowgun. The Gunlance and a bow, no matter how much you're using charge shelling style, it will never beat out a bow or light bowgun build, etc. So if you're using this anyways, you're literally playing like a bow or a light bowgun. So why don't you just switch to those two? By the way, you could hit weak spots with the bow and light bowgun, you can do elemental damage, and you can crit. So bow and light bowguns can do a whole lot more and are factually far more powerful than this one right here. So the bow and light bowgun slander has to stop because you have people using charge shot types because they don't want to use Wyrmstake Shot and Burst Fire or get better at using them. Nothing wrong with that, it's just if you're doing this and you try to make fun of bow or light bowgun users, guess what? You have no ammo. And now we're actually going to test this. We're going to use the Bone Lance charge style versus the Wyrmstake Shot. So since the Bone Lance is being hailed so much, well, let's take a look and do a lot of comparisons with it. The test subject will be a 6-star Puke Puke. So you see 6-star Puke Puke will be the test subject. And both weapons will be at grade 5.1. To test this method out, we will have a Focus 5 Gunlance build go against a Thunder Attack 5 Gunlance build. While this doesn't seem fair, if the charge shelling style is really that good and worth 40 Wyvern Gem Shards, then it should be relatively close to the kill time of Thunder Attack 5. Just like how Black Diablos bow is literally able to keep up or surpass those of other elemental bows. Both builds will not have artillery. This will allow the battle to last longer and get more accurate results because we'd kill the thing faster, and of course this is a 6-star versus a 5.1 weapon, so it's going to die pretty fast, and it will allow us to see the battle more and get a longer result. And here are the test results. The charged shell versus the Wyrmstake Shot. It took 60 seconds for the Focus 5 Bone Gunlance charge shell to slay 6-star Puke, while it only took 30 seconds, half the time, for the Thunder Gunlance to slay 6-star Puke. I took a lot of damage despite using the charged shot Gunlance, even though Puke was less aggressive that battle. That's because the strafing, as I mentioned, is low. Yeah, you could play keep away and whatnot and just try to blast it to death. That doesn't mean monsters don't have range attacks, and that doesn't mean, like I mentioned, your strafing isn't really that high. While I took no damage while using the Thunder 5 Gunlance, that's because Thunder 5 has Evade Extender and it helped, but I had to dodge more attacks. In other words, the Thunder battle, it was a lot more aggressive than it was for the Charge Shot one. So as you see, this battle's still going on with the Charge Shell Gunlance, while the one for the Thunder 5 build is actually over. So how is this so much overpowered when it can't overtake the Thunder one or become the equivalent of it? Where is the situation for Black Diablos bow versus Elemental one? As you see right here, that's not the case. One Wyrmstake Shot did more damage. One, like you see right here, we're circling the bars. To the left, you have one Wyrmstake Combo and like I think one hit from the attack as far as the combo goes, plus the Wyrmstake Shot, and that's one shot for the Charged Shell. You don't think that's worth it, but if you're risking and you have a lot of skill, you land one Wyrmstake Shot, look how much work you did versus this. To summarize, the Charge Shot style isn't worth it. You are better off switching to bow or using bow as a secondary rather than using the Charged Gunlance Shot. It doesn't, as a bow main, it doesn't really make much sense to me why you're going to sit there and tank and be like a tank when you can have a better weapon and a factual better tier weapon overall versus the Gunlance. The Gunlance is not an S tier weapon. The bow and light bow gun are really up there, especially the bow. The bow is an S tier weapon, so why aren't you just using the bow? And if you thought that was even worse, the justification for crafting the bone Gunlance is, oh, it's cheap, you know. It's cheap and it's only 10-1, which is 40 Wyvern Gem Shards. Do you know how much 40 Wyvern Gem Shards are? Here's Bone Gunlance 10.1 cost versus the regular monster 10.1 cost. So if you're doing a regular large monster, here's what it's gonna cost. Here we compare the cheapest weapon proven to take you far into the game, which is the Coral Puke bow versus the Bone Gunlance. The Coral Puke bow has long since hailed to be the beginner's weapon. If you want to go cheap, you'll want to go far, and it's still useful in the future, guess what? Use the Puke bow. In fact, it's even good against Kushala right now, while the Bone Gunlance is super meh. As we see here, crafting a 10-1 Bone Gunlance isn't as cheap as you think. They masquerade it as cheap, it still costs 245,000 Zenny, and 40 Wyvern Gem Shards is a lot. For some of you, it might not be a problem. For some of you, it is a problem. As someone that spent the entire time I spent the entire time at 8 stars trying to get my weapon to 10.5, going from that hunch from 7.5 to even getting your first set of Wyvern Gem Shards to upgrade is really difficult. So why are you spending it on a Bone Gunlance that's actually going to fall off later, and there's going to be more data and evidence to support that, my claim. It even takes the same amount of Rarity 3 materials from large gathering nodes. For the Puke bow, you have Carpenter Bugs versus the Monster Bone Pluses. It's literally practically the same. It's one more for the Puke one, but still. In fact, for the Puke bow, it approximately takes 382 7 stars to get enough of its regular materials. Puke is in every biome. It's an accessible monster. You could take it out in every biome. By the time you get 40 Wyvern Gem Shards, you should have at least slain enough Pukes to get all these materials right here. If you're going after it. Even if you don't, like, you're going to see a lot of them out on the field, you're probably going to get them when you get 40 Wyvern Gem Shards. I spent weeks to get 40 Wyvern Gem Shards. Weeks. You can go weeks without getting one. For some of you, you're luckier than others, but the factual is it's RNG, and something that valuable shouldn't be spent on something that's going to fall off later, and you're not going to end up using for endgame. Unless you really want to go there. But I would never, ever tell a beginner, hey, craft a Bone Gunlance and take it to 10-1. Because in summary, it is much more worth to spend your Wyvern Gem Shards on something far more effective and long-term like the Puke bow, as you will likely use the monster materials. You'll get the monster materials to 10-1 by the time you get enough Wyvern Gem Shards anyways. If you're talking about being cheap, you still have to put in effort to get 40 Wyvern Gem Shards. In that span, you should get enough to get the Puke bow at least, or another weapon that's way better than the Bone Gunlance would be at 10-1. Remember that data I was talking about? Well, here it is. Here's the Black Diablos bow versus the Bone Gunlance. Since Bone Gunlance and wide ammo is being talked about as extremely good, let's compare it to the most powerful raw weapon in the game, the Black Diablos bow. Like I mentioned before, if something's really, really good or something you should invest in, well, it should be on par if not overtake everything else, right? Well, here's the thing. The fact is, the cheapest thing might not be the best. After looking at the data, a grade 8.1 Black Diablos bow is only 8% less base damage with charge level 3 at pierce level 4 taken into account. It's 1460 with the Black Diablos bow at 8.1 versus 1596. So that's not a lot. Black Diablos bow, in fact, at only grade 8.3 will surpass a 10-1 bone gunlance. And this doesn't factor in Focus 5 builds, so let's do that. And now we have the Focus 5 Black Diablos bow versus bone gunlance at Focus 5. Here we have the supporting data for Focus 5, and as we see in the results right here, the Black Diablos bow at grade 8.3 is only less than 2% damage versus a 10-1 bone gunlance. Only 2%, actually less than 2%, 1.77 to be exact. In fact, with just one more upgrade, it will surpass the bone gunlance, requiring much less Wyvern Gem Shards. Now, I know everyone's going to put the argument where, like, Black Diablos bow is a subspecies. However, a hunter that puts in the work will not only have a much more powerful weapon long-term, but far surpass the requirements to have a budget weapon at equivalent or higher strength. We don't have downsizing right now or downgrading weapons to get parts back. And we might not get Wyvern Gem Shards to do so. So why are you going to waste a bunch of that when you could go harder for a subspecies and get something at much less work than it would be to get 40 Wyvern Gem Shards? It's a lot. And since we want to compare materials, we're going to take a look at that next. And to bury this once for all, we have the Black Diablos bow 8.3 versus bone gunlance at 10.1. As we see here, it takes much less materials to get a Black Diablos bow to grade 8.3. Yes, it is a subspecies, but by the time you get 40 Wyvern Gem Shards, you should be able to obtain the materials required for Black Diablos bow at grade 8.3 or beyond if you put in the work and take advantage of Black Diablos events. I have a gold Black Diablos medal. I slayed 614 of them in 7 days. Yes, 614. And before then, the events before, I've slayed over 380 of them. It's totally possible. But that work is much less than it would be to get 40 Wyvern Gem Shards. Black Diablos bow is also going to be a super meta weapon for the future. It's going to be a super weapon that will be meta for the future. Bone Gunlance will not. It's going to fall off and you might regret later on that you ever built it. In summary, cheaper doesn't mean easier. It also doesn't mean the wisest use for resources. If you put in the effort, effort will be rewarded.
Stick around. One. What do you want, stranger?
Books on astral projection.
You're not ready for that.
Try me, Beyonce. Come on. You've heard of her. She's a huge star, right? Do you ever laugh? Come on, just give me a look.
No.
And that scene is incredibly accurate for that entire argument. Speaking of arguments, what is the best Gunlance so far? Well, the best Gunlance so far is the Pink Rothian Gunlance. Yeah, it's hard to get, but this weapon carries the same argument as to why the Pink Rothian Longsword is the best. You have high raw and low poison element. However, the Pink Rothian Gunlance is even better due to Wyrmstake Shot and its ability to proc poison build up like no other weapon in the game so far. If you see this battle against Kushala, literally one Wyrmstake I put into it is just enough for me to activate poison, and it's absolutely insane at just how much damage it does and will help out with a Kushala de Aura battle if you end up doing it in the future with a poison Gunlance. Once you get enough practice in, the Gunlance is an incredibly powerful weapon using Wyrmstake Shot and Burst Fire combos. In all the meetings we have in Niantic, they hailed the Wyrmstake Shot and Burst Fire, and it really is that way. The reason you don't want to use it is because you don't have enough practice or you just don't like the leeway time. But if you do get good at it, you get results like this. We're able to take down legendary monsters like Kushala de Aura, and it will be able to serve you well in the future. Hopefully this video helped you learn something about the Gunlance. And I find it ironic that Black Diablos bow users, bow mains, and light bowgun users are given grief for using the best ranged weapon that takes more skill than charged shelling, and somehow no one bats an eye when it comes to the charged shelling style. No, dead serious. You probably made fun of someone using the Black Diablos bow or using the bow or light bowgun. However, those of you that are now using charged shelling, you have nothing to say when it comes to us. And that's the reality of it. I remember I had some of my commenters going like, hey, or my subs doing like, hey, you know, people think that Black Diablos bow is just tap, tap, tap. Well, you're truly just doing tap, 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 because you're doing tap, hold, fire, reload, tap, hold, fire, reload. Here's what Black Diablos bow has to do. Charge, charge, sidestep appropriately, fire, charge, charge, sidestep, into appropriate range, and then fire, and then hopefully you don't get hit and you're firing at the right spots because of full gyro. And now, with that being said, please do me a huge favor, like, subscribe, and comment for the YouTube algorithm. I'm sorry it took so long for that shelling evidence, but you know what? I had to do it, because if you're gonna build something, again, you should put maximum effort to it, and it should help you in the long run. The Bone Gunlance factually does not do that and is not worth it. Good luck on your grinds. I hope you're getting all the weapons and armor you need, and all the Wyvern Gem Shards that you need. And I will see y'all on the next video.